All right, the last step in the process, at least for this skill development activity, is that so far we've actually only been working in a single map, and we've never even named it anything other than just map. And so I want to show you real quick that at any point in time, you can always come over and right-click and change it up and say, New York City, I'm going to call it Central Park buffer. It's my name of this map. And again, we can go ahead and we could create multiple map files just by going ahead and going to the insert and telling it that you want a new map, right? And so it's really easy anytime you wanted. And all it would do if I create a new map is it's going to go ahead and open up a new tab for me. And again, from there, I can just go ahead and go back to my bookmark, jump right back into Manhattan, and suddenly I've got multiple different maps. You can actually even pull data back and forth between them just by going ahead and clicking over to the other one. And if I want to grab this tree selection, I can actually just drag it in and drop it in here and then redock that real fast. And you'll actually see that the only thing here now is the tree layer that we've gone ahead and selected from. Now what I want to go ahead and show you how to do though is how do you turn this into a final map, and this is kind of a multi-step process, and the reason for that is that it's really it's easy to go ahead and create a map for use here in the ArcGIS environment. It's a bit more challenging to get our mapping products from here over into the Adobe software that we're all much more comfortable as landscape architects working in. And really, I'm going to show you both, but the Adobe tutorial will come in a future video. For today, all we're going to do is how do we create a layout? And this is the equivalent of going into CAD and going into Paperspace. Is that it used to be that there were only two view options in GIS. There was a map view, which I always referred to as model space, and there was a layout view, which I always referred to as Paperspace, and it helped me kind of make sense of things. Right now I'm going to go ahead and close this other tab, and this is just kind of the layer that we were working with. And I'm going to go ahead and go to Insert, and I'm going to go ahead and click on New Layout. And what I want to do here is that I'm just going to go ahead and pick Architectural C. That's probably too big. I'm going to Architectural B. We can do a 12 by 18 inch layout. And what's going to pop up is a blank sheet of paper for us. And so, a number of changes have been made going over to ArcGIS Pro. One of them is that they've made this user interface more complex as well. And there's some reasons for it. I understand what they're trying to do, but I wish that the map just popped up here. Now, with that said, one of the things that I would strongly suggest doing is the first time you go ahead is always go ahead and rename your layout. So in this case, I'm just going to call this New York City Central Park tree or buffer, and I'm going to go ahead and just let myself know that this is the 12 by 12x18 paper layout. That's just how I like to go ahead and record it. You can do whatever you want with it. The upside is that in order to now actually add a map to this is that all we have to do is go ahead and click on map frame, and there's a couple different ways to going about doing this. Is that I can go ahead and click on a default view, or I can just jump back over here to Central Park, because default view would just give me what's on screen there, and I can kind of zoom in to what I'm comfortable with. I think something about that size works out pretty well for me. It shows the entire buffer. Maybe if I can just get a touch closer without losing everything, that's probably good. What I'm going to do is, this is why bookmarks are so important, is that this is going to be my Central Park layout map. And so what I'm going to do with that is that I'm going to go ahead now and jump over into my layout view, click on the map frame, and grab my Central Park layout view, and it should, when I drop all of this in here, it should go ahead and auto-populate with whatever layers I have turned on and zoom in directly on that. Now you'll see that it didn't quite come in cropped quite as tightly as what I had there, and we can definitely change that. And this is one of those situations where I have to explain one of the oddest things about working with ArcGIS, which is that there are two different types of zoom. There is a layout zoom, and you can actually see here under the layout tab. The layout zoom allows me to actually go ahead and zoom in, and you can see that I can click in and zoom in even further. I can actually use the mouse wheel and zoom around. And really what I'm doing here is paper space, zooming in and around. If I want to make a change to the scale, or how I'm looking in the map view, what I have to do is I actually have to come over and click a button called Activate. And what Activate's going to do is it is going to temporarily make it so that I can actually move in and out in model space within the layout view. If that's not complicated enough for you, I'm not sure what is. So now that I've done that, as soon as I'm done, I need to go ahead and go back to my layout, right? And go ahead and click on that. And what's happened now is that it went ahead and locked in on where I was at. Right, so here are the basics. And so what we've got sitting here in front of us, well, I've got a New York, I've got a Central Park layer. I can go ahead and I'm just going to drag these up to the top, the ones that I want to use. I don't need any of that. New York City base clip, I do want that, and I'm going to put it on top of that so I get some of this. My buffer only layer, I'm going to go ahead and drag that up here as well. I think blue is a little bit too much for me at this point. I don't know, make it yellow, maybe there you go, orange, right? Something that'll help the trees really kind of stand out. Well, and then the last thing, just in terms of starting to think through, like, what am I really, we were looking at the diameter, the DBH of these different trees, and what might we, want to know about them, right? Right now, these are just individual points, and I actually don't know anything other than these are individual points. So something else I can do is that I can come into my tree project selection. So this is just, again, just to show you, just these trees within the buffer. If I go ahead and right click on it and drop over to symbology, actually as soon as I right clicked on it, it actually opened up symbology over here. Instead of going to single symbol, one of the things that I could do if I wanted is that I could go ahead and use graduated colors. And you can actually see that instead of using tree ID, which is just I can actually change that up to DBH, and you can actually see it'll break it up into classes. I can go further than that and actually here go to proportional symbols, and for the moment it gets all messy. Remember, I need to make sure this is DBH, so it's reading the right column of information. And then I'm actually going to go ahead, I think that that's a bit, oh, and then of course GIS did what GIS does, and it crashes out for me. I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I will jump back in and show you what I was up to. Thought about restarting the video there, but just to show you, it just happens, right? ArcGIS has some issues when it comes to locking up. I'm sure it was just an issue of the number of data points it was dealing with there, and it just overwhelmed it. This is a good reminder that always go ahead and hit save. Saving goes ahead and make sure you don't, when you come back in, that most everything is basically where you left it before it crashed. And so, especially if you're about to do something with a big data layer, always save first. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of jump in. This is basically what I was doing. One of the things that we can do to limit the number of potential, what I did here is that I actually clicked on tree project, held the shift button, which selects everything, and then I'm going to go ahead and just remove all of these other layers. And really what I'm doing is I'm just simplifying. I'm not actually using that layer, those layers anymore, and so I'm simplifying what's being shown in here. What I'm really aiming for here is that I want to be able to, for these trees, I want to be able, within the symbology, I want to show a graduated symbol, and ideally, or not a graduate, a proportional symbol. And what I mean by that is that what I'm after in this layer is that for DBH, what I would like to be able to show is that I would like to be able to show each of the trees on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of overall size. And so when I've done that, what happens, and again, I'm zooming around in paper space, right? So in the layout view, I can actually zoom in, and you can actually see just by the size of the tree bubbles, which are large trees and which are small trees, right? And I think that's useful information. We could again, I showed you a minute ago how you could do that with colors, and I think that certainly is an approach that could work as well. Um, you know, Certainly at this scale, maybe that makes more sense to actually run it that way. But right now, I'm just trying to show you some of the basics. All right. In addition to that, the other thing I want to show you that comes along with setting up a layout view is that layouts have lots of other tools that we need to go, or lots of other things we need to go ahead and insert. So go back to the insert menu. The things that you're going to find are pretty much all set up here. Let's just start on the left side of the list. You need a north arrow. Pretty much every drawing we ever produce, I can go ahead and click on that, grab a north arrow, and go ahead and draw it in and drop it, and away we go. We've got a north arrow for our project. Scale bar. I strongly recommend, because it helps us in creating graphic scales when we get to that point, which I'm not going to go into depth on this in this video, but I will show you how to print this off so that you have a known scale that will correspond with an engineering scale when you send it to the plotter in a future video. I strongly recommend using the single division scale for that purpose, but again, all it asks you to do is then go ahead and draw it in. You can right click on this and change up all of the properties that you want to change up. Right now it's set up in miles, which seems a little too much, right? So I can go ahead and change that out to feet. I can also go ahead and put a legend in here. The legend menu, when it pops up, I'm gonna make sure I save real quick because that seems like it's wanting to crash out on me again. The legend, when it pops up, all right, let's go ahead and draw that in. It's going to pop up and show everything here in the legend. You can actually decide what's visible and what's not just by playing with your properties over here. Realistically, the only thing that's really of importance to me within this particular legend is the tree DBH. And so, I mean, I can come over here and start playing around with with all of the options that we have available to us. I can come in and pick out the different layer names and make changes to how the layers are there. But realistically, I don't feel like I need to go ahead and show you every one of those steps in that process of kind of deciding what would be appropriate to have in a layer. Now, the last thing that I will tell you is that certainly it's great to be able to have all these options, but sometimes it's just better to go ahead and right click on your legend layer. And as soon as I convert this to a graphic, what happens is that I can come in here and ungroup it. And as soon as I've ungrouped it, I can actually just go through and basically, and zap out all of the parts of the layer that I didn't want. Makes it really useful. And here I can actually change up. Let's just go ahead and leave it as tree DBH. There we go. I can go ahead and just change up everything on my own. It gets rid of things like this, which is a title that I don't want or need. By converting it over into a graphic, I can basically just get rid of all of kind of the constraints of the menus and the buttons and just be able to go ahead and change that up however I want. Now, in addition to that, you can always come in and drop in a text box. You can certainly, within your text box, we can come in and do, add your text. You can actually type it in over here or there. You can decide what size you want it to be. But these are all things that I definitely want you to be, so again, lots and lots of buttons. But this is something I want you to go ahead and add into your map, is just put a couple of different labels on here so you can go ahead and show me what that looks like as you go ahead and develop it. Let me double check my assignment sheet, make sure I've covered everything. What I said I'd cover in this particular video in the assignment sheet was really just about creating this layout and getting some of the basic information kind of pulled in there. And again, we can go ahead now and we could rearrange and drop all of this down here into the white space I left at the bottom, and certainly, I could come in and drop a title in over the top of this. I would like you to do that for your assignment. Go ahead and produce a final map. Show me what you can do here and just kind of creating this layout. And again, if you ever kind of get into that point, you can always come back and zoom to your overall. Last thing that you need to know how to do is that once you're done creating this, if you go ahead and if you want to go ahead and share this out, what you're going to do is go over to the share button, click on export layout, and all you need to do for this assignment is you can go ahead and set it up here where you can go ahead and pick out as a PDF, and you can go ahead and save a PDF. It does not need to be 300 resolution. 200 is always more than enough, and probably way more than enough on this size file. You can come down here, hit export.